Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Yes, I do. First of all, there's these flyers, and then we have simply Parsha. We have two. We're going to do.
I got an email too.
One of this and one of this. This first and that second. Okay.
Let me do my work.
Do it your way. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Shlomo Israel. Fortunately, he was away. His mom passed away, so may be comforted. He's very strict. Be careful. We are having a class tomorrow night with Rabbi Marcus on how to make prayer more effective. Please join us. 7 o'clock here. We're going to try to do a little bit of two portions. Last week's portion, Yisro, and this coming week's portion, Mishpatim. Okay? So Yisro was chapter 18, verse 1 through chapter 20, verse 23. It has only 72 verses in it, some very important things, though, which we're going to talk about, including the 10 Commandments. So we're going to talk about that first. Who was Yisro? Yisro was Moshe's father-in-law, and he originally had worked for Pharaoh in Egypt, advised him not to fight against the Jews. He saw that Pharaoh didn't like his advice, so he skipped out of town before sundown because he didn't want to be on his bad, didn't want him to get punished by Pharaoh. Ran away to Midian, and there he became the head priest, but eventually saw that it wasn't true, and he left it. To the dismay of all the people there, they rejected him for this, and he was a searcher. And he had 7 names, he had 7 daughters, and one of them married Moshe. Zipporah was the one who married Moshe. Are we good?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Now the Parsha begins, Vayishma Yisro, and Yisro heard. What did he hear? He heard about the miracles of the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek. So the commentaries ask a very interesting question. Everybody heard about it. It was on CNN and all over. No TV back then.
Highly publicized.
What?
It was highly publicized.
It was highly publicized. So what's the big deal that Yisro heard? And the answer is he heard and he understood that there's a responsibility that comes with that. He understood that there's something significant that went on here. I can't just change channels and watch the football game instead. It has to motivate me to change and grow. And that is a very powerful idea, and that's a tremendous compliment to Yisro. Many people see things, hear things, and they're, oh, that's interesting. Story about a Israeli who had gone traveling with friends of his, and they were in the jungle, and a snake wraps itself around one of his friends. And they're trying to pull the snake off, nothing's happening. And finally, the guy says, Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Our God is one, and the snake slithers off. And the guy became, that man who had the snake on him became religious. So Rabbi asked this man who saw what happened, and what about you? He says, oh, it didn't happen to me, it happened to the other guy. What's the problem with that? You were a witness to a miracle. That should spark you for growth as well. But he just, hey, it happened to him, not to me, what's relevant to me? So that's an important idea. And I would argue that October 7th is a wake-up call for us as well, and needs to motivate us to figure out what can I do more? What can I do better? And that's what Yisro did. And he came with Zipporah and Moshe's two sons, and Moshe gave him great honor and came out to greet him and brought him to his tent, and he was doing outreach to him, trying to bring him closer to Torah, and explained many of the things that had happened to the Jewish people in their travels. And Yitzhak decides to join the Jewish people. And Moshe, and they have guests, and so Yisro converts, and Moshe makes a feast, and Moshe himself is serving the guests, which is a very nice thing. The Torah is going to jump ahead to Yisro giving Moshe an idea, which we're going to talk about. Now, jumps ahead because the Torah itself, the written Torah, is not always in chronological order. So the story of Moshe, of Yisro giving an idea, happened after the Jewish people got the Torah, which is later on in the portion. And what happens? What happens is Moshe is sitting, and all the Jewish people line up and ask questions about what is Jewish law. What's the problem?
You said that Israel, it's father-in-law Moshe's father.
Correct.
But he was religious.
My mom was wondering if
Who was religious?
He was
Yeah,
not
Israel.
He was religious, but not of Judaism. He wasn't Jewish.
You said he was married to
Zipporah was his daughter. So his daughter became Jewish first,
she became.
and then he later on, now in this week's portion, is becoming Jewish.
Again, that came from with a Jew started.
I'm sorry?
Not the Jews, the Jew people,
I don't understand what your question is.
the people in Israel, not the Jews, the Jew,
I don't know what you're referring to.
the other type of people in the Jewish faith.
There's either Jews or non-Jews.
Jew, SJEWW. You
No.
don't know who I'm talking about.
No, that's Jew is a Jew.
Not Jewish, Jew, the type of people,
Oh, the Druze, you mean?
yes,
Druze?
oh, okay,
They're not Jewish. They're
no, but they came from that family?
not that I know of. No,
So Israel, he was Jewish, but not
was not
religious.
no, he was not Jewish. He became Jewish.
Because of his daughter.
No, because he heard about what had happened to the Jewish people, and he found that very inspiring, and then he became Jewish.
You heard about the splitting of the sea.
Я понимаю, дочка же вышла замуж.
My mom was confused about, okay, his daughter was not Jewish, she wasn't Jewish. His whole
But
family-
Moshe was Jewish.
Yes,
So he made it non-Jewish.
no,
And
she
then she-
became Jewish first,
Okay.
and then he married her.
Okay.
And then later on, he wants to join the family, not because of her, because he was a searcher. He was looking for truth, and now it motivated him to do it.
Okay, thank you.
So Moshe sat, and everyone lined up and asked questions. And this is a very, very important idea in Judaism: the importance of asking questions to find out what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing to do. A person needs to have a rabbi for Jewish law questions, and also have a rabbi for personal questions. Very important. A lot of people are not so comfortable with that. They'd rather do what they want to do and not ask too many questions. But the importance of questions is very, very important as far as Judaism goes. So Yisro was upset because he saw all Moshe sitting from day and night, and all the Jews lined up, and everyone was lining up and asking questions. So he said, it's not a good idea. And he came up with a solution. He said, Moshe should pick honest people that will be learned, and every 10 people will have one person that they can go to. If that person knows the answer, great. If not, they'll ask the head of the 50, who's a little bit more knowledgeable, and ask him the question. And if he knows the answer, great. And if not, then they'll ask the head of the 100 people. If he knows the answer, great. If not, they'll ask the head of the 1,000 people. If he knows the answer, great. And only after he does not, then they'll go to Moshe. And if Moshe doesn't know the answer, then he'll ask God. Okay? So that's his idea of having a system of, if you will, lower courts and higher courts, depending on the difficulty of the question. Yes?
What was Yisro's position with Pharaoh again?
He was an advisor initially.
And when he told him not to do what?
Not to hurt the Jewish people.
Like when he was the
The right, exactly.
He says, don't kill, and he ran away.
And he so far didn't like his answer, so he skipped out of town. Okay?
Rabbi, may I ask?
You just did? What's the next question? Yes.
So the divisions, the sectors of different courts
Uh-huh.
imply a census to be taken. But is that,
Why a census? They didn't have to.
well, because
They didn't have to
There
take a
was-
census, they just had to count, okay, every 10 people will go to this guy, every 10 people, every 50 people go to this one, every 100 go to this, every 1,000 go to that one.
okay, so it's grouped according to number, right?
Right.
50, 100. So is that halachically acceptable to take these individual groups and identify them as,
We don't have that system today.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way
Okay.
today. There are
how,
lo-
how is it applied? How can that?
Today, it's not applied today.
Okay.
It's not applied today, but I will tell you something interesting that is applicable today that's important to know. I'd like to point out, what did Yisro say and what did Moshe implement? So I'm going to show you what verse it is. So in verse 22 on page 399, they shall judge the people at all times, and they shall bring every major matter to you, and every minor matter they shall judge. And it will be eased for you, and they shall bear with you. Right? Again, page 399, verse 22, they shall judge the people at all times, and they shall bring every major matter to you, and every minor matter they shall judge. And the word used for major in the Torah is gadol, which means what? Big. Every big thing they'll give you, and every little thing they'll do. Now compare that to verse 26 on page 401, which says, they judge the people at all times. The difficult things they would bring to Moshe, and the minor ones they would themselves would judge. Verse 26, compare verse 26 to 22. What is the difference between the two? 26 is on page 401, and 22 is on page 399. Compare the two verses, please. Can anyone see the difference there? What?
Difficult versus major.
Difficult versus major. What's the difference between difficult and major?
Difficult seems to be specific, whereas major is general.
Okay, more than that. How does it work in small claims court in the United States, in California at least? I don't know what the number is, but I think it's around $10,000.
No, 2,000.
2,000? Okay. $2,000 you go to small claims court, right? Anything more than 2,000, you have to go to regular court. that's tied to whether it's big, gadol, big or small. But in Jewish law, it's not about the amount. It's about the difficulty of the question. It could be $1 million case that's very easy, and it could be a $500 case that's difficult. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? So Yisro was saying anyone big, any case that's big will go to you, and a small case they'll deal with. But Moshe implemented the idea, but he says anything that is difficult, they'll come to me, and anything that is small, they'll take care of. And the difference is a very practical thing. When you have a question that is challenging, you need to take it up to a rabbi who's capable of dealing with that challenging question. When it's an easy question, it's not about value. It's about whether it's difficult or not difficult.
I said difficult versus easy in terms of the concept.
Right?
So how does that compare to major?
Well, the word in Hebrew that's used is gadol, big. So he said, whatever's big, go to you. Whatever's small, they'll take care of. So the article translates it a little bit differently. But the point being that it's the same idea. Yisro is thinking if it's a large amount, that's going to need a big rabbi. Moshe is saying, no, it's not about the amount. It's about whether, not if it's a major case. It could be a minor case, but it could be difficult. So that's going to go to Moshe.
So major refers to amount
or big. It's a big case, But difficult is very clear what it is. Difficult has nothing to do with the size of the case, whether it's major or minor. Yeah.
Is difficult more intricate in that it has different nuances, and so
Yeah, you have
specialists would
100%. You have to know more what to do with that. But it's only, there was a lady who came, a question about a chicken. In good old days, people would buy the chicken, not in a package, prepackaged, ready to eat, put into the oven or ready to eat in a restaurant, but they would bring a chicken and have it ritually slaughtered. And sometimes there'd be a question, I have to go to Rabbi, is there a problem with this chicken? So this lady brings it, and the rabbi said, oh, this is a difficult case. So they start discussing it back and forth. She says, never mind. I have another one. They said, you don't understand. It's not about whether it's your chicken anymore now. Now the Jewish law question becomes the bigger issue. You have to deal with it. We have to figure out what's the law. So that's what I'm saying. It's about the complexity of the case needs.
Repeated twice. Like, why is the same concept repeated in 399?
No, it's not. One is Moshe's suggestion, and the 401 is what Moshe did. And Moshe, when we look at every word, we nuance it and say, it's different than what Yisro said. Because Yisro is saying big and small, and he's saying difficult and small. Got it? Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
You just did. What's the next question? Yes?
You mentioned the chicken. Who can slaughter the chicken? Jewish person can slaughter
Yes.
the chicken?
Yes, you learn how to do it, but yes.
Yeah, but if it's not a Jewish person, can they slaughter chicken for a Jew person to make it kosher?
No, because he has to know the laws of how to do ritual slaughter. I couldn't do it because I don't know how to do it. Besides that,
But if
Swedish.
people teach a person how to do it,
a Jewish person
a Jewish person,
teaches a
teach
Jewish
somebody,
person,
not a Jewish person.
not a non-Jewish person.
No,
No,
only Jewish person.
right? He has to learn the laws, right? All right. So God tells the Jewish people to prepare, tell Moshe to tell the Jewish people they should prepare to receive the Torah. Now, the oral tradition tells us that God went to all the nations of the world and asked them, do you want the Torah? And what did the nations say? Each nation asked, what's in it? And depending on which nation asked, God told them one thing, something that would be challenging for them. The descendants of Esau said, you want the Torah? What's in it? It says, don't kill. It said, sorry, we like killing, not for us. Children of Yishmael, you want the Torah? What's in it? No stealing. Sorry, we like to steal. So the people, each nation asked, and what's in it? And what did the Jewish people say? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do, and then we'll understand. We accept it upon ourselves. Whatever you're going to command us, we're going to accept, we're going to do it. And then after we do it, then we'll hopefully try to understand it. So Na'aseh v'nishma is a very powerful line. They did not ask what's in it. They just accepted the Torah right away. Where did Hashem give the Torah? By the mountain of Mount Sinai. Why Mount Sinai? So the oral tradition tells us a beautiful idea. The nations of the world said Hashem is going to give the Torah. Fantastic. One mountain said, God for sure will choose me because I'm the tallest. The other one said, no, I have the most beautiful trees. The other one said, I have the most beautiful flowers. What did Mount Sinai say? Not going to be me. I'm just plain old me. Ah, you're humble? And that's what Hashem picked. Hashem picked the humble.
Okay, where it is, Mount Sinai.
It's in the Sinai desert near Israel, in Israel.
Because someone else says it's near a rock.
What?
Some other people say it's near a rock.
There's a rock there, but not, are you talking about Iraq?
Top of the particular mountain, it's like all burnt.
No, not that I know of. No, it's in the Sinai desert. So this is, what is humility? And why, if God wanted a humble place, why didn't he give it in a valley? And this is important. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. I'll say that again. Angela, you hear this?
Yes.
Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. Great story with Baron Rothschild, Edmund de Rothschild, one of the wealthiest men in the world, loaned money to countries, and he is approached by government officials, say, we heard you have a room in your house that is always locked. And we're suspicious that maybe there's some funds there that you're not reporting that are there. And he says, look, I don't want to go into that room. I'll pay you whatever penalties you think I wasn't being honest with you with the taxes. I'll pay all the penalties. I don't want to go into the room. And no, they insisted that he has to open the door. And they come to the door and they're expecting a big treasure room. And instead, they come in and it's completely bare of furniture. It only has a stone that says, here lies Shimon Wolf ben Ploinimus. There was a tombstone with his name on it. And he said, and they look at him, what is this? He says, I deal with noblemen and kings and princes and everything. And I want to maintain my humility. So every day I go into this room for a few minutes to look at my tombstone because I'm going to have it end like everybody else does. And all of this wealth and honor, you can't take that with you. So he went into the room and looked at the tombstone that was his tombstone with his name on it to give him perspective on how he should live life. Very powerful idea. And the government officials, walked out in shame because clearly this is not what they anticipated he would have in this room. All right. So the nations of the world reject the Torah. The Jewish people say we will do it and then understand. And God gives it to him. Why in a desert? And the idea is it doesn't need the trappings. The Torah doesn't need trappings. It doesn't need to be even in the land of Israel. It's just plain place. Anybody has access to it and can come there, and you don't need any big prep you don't need any special anything. It's accessible for everybody. There was a beautiful unity of the Jewish people there. They came to Mount Sinai as one person. And God revealed himself to the entirety of the Jewish people, including all the souls of the future Jewish people, including the future converts. Everybody witnessed Sinai. This is the only religion that makes that claim, that there was a public revelation. No other religion can make that claim. Why not? Why can't other religions make that claim? Because if I told you all, let's make up that during class I was flying around the room. I could fly. So maybe you all would agree to do it, but eventually maybe someone will say, hey, he really didn't fly. We just said that. You can't have a public revelation unless it really happened, because someone's going to say it didn't happen. But the Jewish people were there in its entirety, and God revealed himself and gave them what's known as the 10 Commandments. It's really not the 10 Commandments, it's really the 10 utterances, because there's within the 10 Commandments, there's several different laws. Like it says, don't bow down to idols and don't make them. Those are two different laws. But we call it the 10 Commandments because that's what everyone calls it, and that's what the movie was, and etc. But which I don't recommend. But in any event, God is revealing himself. The oral tradition tells us that God said the first two commandments himself, and the souls of the Jewish people couldn't take it. They left their bodies. God had to resurrect them. And they said, okay. It said, I am your God who took you out of Egypt, and don't have any other gods. And by the way, that's the foundation of all the other commandments in the Torah, because I am your God who took you out of Egypt is for the positive commandments. Don't have any other gods is for the negative things, not to do. And it's a basis of all of the Torah. And interestingly enough, the letters of the 10 Commandments equal 620, which corresponds to the 613 commandments plus 7 rabbinic laws. So that's 620 are the amount of letters in the Torah. Mount Sinai was lifted up. It was like a chuppah, like a marriage canopy to the Jewish people, because that's what the relationship is based upon. And so what are the 10 Commandments? In America, they're known as the 10 suggestions, but they're really not suggestions, they're commandments. The first one is, I am the God, your God who took you out of Egypt. The second one is, don't make or bow down to any other idols. Then the third one is, don't say God's name in vain. The fourth one is, remember to keep the Shabbos holy. Work for 6 days, 7th day you should rest, because God rested on the 7th day. Fifth one is, honor your father and mother, you'll live long. Sixth one is, no murder, don't kidnap, don't murder, don't marry somebody who you're not allowed to marry, don't kidnap, don't say false testimony about somebody else, and don't be jealous. Okay, these are the 10 Commandments. If you want to look at them a little bit more, they're found on page 406 through 413 is where the commentary and the words would be. Interesting. The commandment for honoring parents doesn't say love them. You're not required to love parents. Parents aren't always so lovable, but we're required to respect them and listen to them. What happens if a parent tells you to do something against the Torah? So now you're in a pickle, because on one hand you have to listen to your parent, on the other hand you have to listen to God. But listening to the parent is also part of the Torah. So you don't have to listen to the parent when they tell you something wrong. Because they're required to listen to the Torah as well. They may not know how to, or didn't learn about it, but, and by the way, that's very important to have a rabbi in a situation like that, to tell you how to deal with a situation like that. A lot more to say, but the Ten Commandments, each 5 and 5. The first 5 are between man and God, and the second 5 between man and fellow man. Right? So the Ten Commandments are actually the way that we can, all of the mitzvahs are ways that we can connect to God, and a way of giving us purpose in life and meaning, because we live above not what I want to do, but what God tells me to do. There's a lot more to talk about, obviously, each one, but I do want to get to this week's portion.
Can you repeat this again?
Which one?
What is the mitzvah again?
Which mitzvah?
You said mitzvah is to connect to God and
It is to connect to God, and that's all mitzvahs, not only the Ten Commandments. All the mitzvahs are opportunity for us to get closer to God, and remove any blocks that we have that are making it harder for us to be closer to God. And it was an unbelievable experience to be at Sinai, to see God giving the Ten Commandments to the Jewish people. And then Moshe would go up and learn the rest of the Torah to be able to teach it to them. But the basis of it is the Ten Commandments.
When did they get the 613 other laws after that?
The other laws were given to them by Moshe when they came down. They accepted all of them, but they started with these 10 first. Now somebody already got a little bit in Egypt, but that's Parshas Yisro, at least in a nutshell. Yes.
So do the 10 utterances include the 613?
No, they only have 14 commandments,
Okay.
but they are the basis, the foundation of how Rabbi Haigain, I think it was, it shows how all 613 emanate from them, but they're the basis of it. And we said pretty simply, when we say, I am God who took you out of Egypt, that's how to get closer to God. That's the positive commandments. Don't have any other gods. Don't do the negative commandments, as an example. Or the 2 tablets, the commandments between man and fellow man, and between man and God. So there's a lot of connections to all of the Torah. Okay, so Parshas Mishpatim, which is this coming week's Torah portion, in fact, goes into great detail about many different laws. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Parsha fact, you'll see that it begins on page 416 in the Handy Art Scroll, chapter 21, verse 1 through 24 through verse 18. It has 118 verses, and there are 53 commandments in it. 53 is almost 10% of the 613 commandments are on this week's portion. Yes.
Security guard just took a chair outside of the bag that's placed on it.
So just tell it to maybe just use a different chair, or you can bring the place in, whatever you'd like. Thank you. It probably just picked the chair to sit on. That's all. Yeah. He's a trustworthy guy. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. He probably thinks it's just a pillow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So. This week actually the Torah reading is a little bit different, because we don't just read the portion of Mishpatim. We also, it is Rosh Chodesh. It is the new month of the first Adar. So we're going to do a second take out of second Torah scroll and read about Rosh Chodesh, about the new month. Okay.
Is it going to be always a certain part for a Rosh Chodesh, or no, each Rosh Chodesh has different?
You know, every Rosh Chodesh read the same part.
Oh.
Yeah. It's okay, it doesn't say which book it is. Okay, so that's my mistake. We put it out. It should be in Numbers. Okay. Yes, it is. If you want to know where it is, I'll tell you in a second. You could add it to the paper. Rosh Chodesh is Numbers 28, 9 through 15. So you need to add the word numbers.
What page?
What?
What page is it?
I didn't say the page. I just tell you what chapter it is. Chapter 28, verse 9 through 15.
Right, so my mom was asking, the Torah reading, how does it correlate to the Parsha?
So usually the Haftarah, the reading from the book of prophets, is related to something in the Parsha. One way or the other, and you have to look at the article, wonderful article commentary, they'll tell you what the connection is. But this week we're not reading the Mishpatim Haftarah because we're reading about Rosh Chodesh. So it's going to be related. So it's going to be related to Rosh Chodesh.
Last week they had a Torah portion,
Every week we have Haftarah portion.
except
But
for Chodesh.
no, we on Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos we have Haftarah portion, but it's related not to the Parsha, it's related to Rosh Chodesh. Okay. Now there's a wonderful book called Master Plan, which is a book, about the mitzvos, and it has 5 categories of mitzvos. It's a book, we probably have it in the library too, which is right here open after class. And I'm going to give you the 5 groups that he has. It's based upon the writing of Rabbi Samson Full Hirsch, and it goes through many mitzvahs. And here goes the groups. Group 1, justice toward other people. Laws which form the basis of social legislation, which a lot of Mishpatim is going to deal with that. If my ox damages, you or your ox, what's the law? Number 2, is justice toward the environment. This is regulating our use and enjoyment of the environment. Number 3, love and concern for other people. Mitzvahs fostering enhanced awareness of the needs of other people. That's the merit mitzvah of tzedakah, for example, or chesed, loving kindness. Group 4, enrichment of the environment. Mitzvahs which fill the environment with God-oriented activities. You make kiddush on Shabbos. That would go into that. Group 5, the inner life, mitzvahs addressed to our heart and mind, expressing an intimate relationship with God. So I'll go through the 5 groups again that he has. And again, the book is called Master Plan, and I'm just giving you something from the introduction there. Group 1, justice toward other people. Group 2, justice toward the environment. Group 3 is love and concern for other people. 4 is enrichment of the environment, and 5 is the inner life. Okay.
Rabbi, what's the name of the rabbi who authored the book Master Plan?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's Rabbi Carmel, I think, is the author of it.
And it's for Sephardic too?
The Torah is for everybody.
Mitzvahs, like, it's the same?
Same mitzvahs. They're just different customs that Sephardim have different Ashkenazim, but the mitzvahs are the same. Pesach eat matzah? Yes, not on Sukkot, right? Right? Yes. Now, what's very important to know is something that we've talked about in the past and we'll continue to talk about is a little vodka. What's very important to know is that the Torah is the notes, the written part of the Torah. But there's a whole other commentary was later written down in the Talmud, in the Mishnah, and in the Gemara, known as the Talmud, that gives the details. For example, in this week's portion, one of the things it would say is an eye for an eye. What does that mean to everybody in the world?
You hit me, I hit you back.
Right, but that's not what it means in the Torah. An eye for eye means if someone knocks out somebody else's eye, then they have to compensate them financially for another eye. But that, you look at the text, It looks like eye for eye, hand for hand, but that's not what it means. And the way I use it is that the written Torah is like an outline. If you have an outline, you're going to get a lot of information, but you're not going to know all the facts. That's why you need to be in the class, not just look at the outline, right? So Parshat Mishpatim has lines, verses that are entire volumes of Talmud to explain what happens if this happens, what happens if that happens. So it's very important to realize that the written Torah is the source of all, but the details are worked out. Initially were done orally, but later on written down in the Mishnah and Gemara, which became the Talmud. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Yes? Okay, good.
The Talmud is Mishnah and Gemara combined.
Yes, that is correct. Now the opening verses of Parshas Mishpatim, I jumped ahead a little bit. The opening verses deal with slavery, which has a very negative connotation for good reason. But the truth of the matter is, people feel slavery is abolished. Maybe in the United States it's abolished, but in the rest of the world, there's anywhere between 21 to 40 million people that are still slaves. So the Torah teaches us what it means to how to take care of a slave. And interestingly enough, there's a great story with Rabbi Grossman, who lives in Migdal Emek in Israel. Quite unusual. He heard noise in his home and he was wondering who it could be. And he went over and he found out that there was a guy who was middle of robbing him. Didn't realize the rabbi was home. So the rabbi went and quietly tiptoed backward, locked the door, and he didn't walk outside to lock it. He locked it on the inside. He didn't want the burglar to escape, and he remained there, and the burglar alone with the locked doors. And sure enough, the man was about to leave, and Rabbi Grossman said, "Can I help you?" And the man was like, "What are you looking for?" And the burglar was like, And Rabbi Grossman said, "I'm going to give you a choice. I could either call the police now and you'll be arrested, or you could promise me you'll come for Shabbos." Come for Shabbos. That's it. That's the only, spend with me from Friday night through Saturday night. And if you choose that, then I won't call the police and I'll forget about this whole incident. So, he decided, okay, that's what I have to do, just be your guest for Shabbos. That's it. I want you to see what a Shabbos is like. So the date was set, and the burglar showed up, surprisingly. He could have just overlooked the whole deal, but he didn't. He showed up, and he went to Friday night prayers and delicious food, inspiring songs, and enlightening Torah thoughts. And by the time Shabbos was over, he had gone through a whole transformation. And he decided to learn more about Judaism. And today he's an observant Jew. And just those words, "I want you to see what a Shabbos is like," changed his life. And that's a little bit what this slave idea is about. Sometimes a person became a slave because he stole and he didn't have money to pay back. So he would be sold for 6 years. And during the 6 years, he's in a Jewish home and he sees what it's like. And in the 7th year, he can go out free. Now, if he wants to stay longer, his ear is pierced, but then he has to stay till Yovel. But it's not putting him into a jail where he learns how to be a better thief. It's rather putting him in an environment which potentially could change his life.
What's the story about the guy wanted to marry one of their daughters? That his father gave him a different daughter.
I don't. Oh, yeah, we had that a few months ago. Yeah, about.
I forgot his name, but.
Rachel and Leah. Yeah,
Okay.
right. That's correct. That was him not being a good guy. So we have other laws in Mishpatim that are fascinating. One of them is if somebody does intentional murder, then if there are people who warn him, witnesses who warn him not to do it and he could be killed, and witness that he did it, then he's killed. What if it's unintentional? Then there's something called the cities of refuge. Then they would have to run to certain designated cities in Israel. We don't have them today, and he'd have to be there till the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, dies, and then he could go free. Again, as I mentioned, it's page 423, verse 24, an eye for an eye, not literal. Okay, what do we pay when we damage somebody else? We have to pay several things, 5 different things. The value of the person that's diminished as a slave. What would a person pay not to have this pain? Medical expenses, and here we know that a person can go to the doctor by Jewish law. He doesn't have to say, no, I have faith. No, go to the doctor, follow their advice. The work that they lost and the shame that they had. So we're paying for 5 things. The value of the person diminished as a slave, the pain, the medical expenses, the absence from work, and the shame. So this is makes a lot of all those signs. Hey, an accident, let us sue for you, $7 gazillion. It sort of tempers that a little bit. If a person steals, he's required to pay double. If the value of the item is $100, he has to pay $200. If it's a sheep or ox and it's literally slaughtered or sold, then you pay 4 or 5 times the amount. If you make a pit in the middle of the public domain and someone else's ox falls in, you got to pay for it. This is only public property, because in my property, you don't belong there. Your ox doesn't belong there. What's your ox doing in my property? In America, it's a little bit crazier. You know, a guy set up a shotgun in his house if a thief walks in, and then the thief walked in, got shot by the shotgun, and he sued and he won. You don't belong there. You know, you're not supposed to do that. You're responsible for damage your animal does, damage you caused by a fire. The mitzvah of lending money to somebody else, and you don't charge interest, and you don't have to be wealthy. The borrower can't lend it out to somebody else because it's not his, right? Be careful not to cheat or cause pain to a convert, because you were strangers in the land too. And don't remind him or her of her past. I had a great story several years ago about a woman who converted, and she was Black, and she came to me and said, "What should I do? I feel very uncomfortable. I have people come over to me all the time. Oh, you're Jewish? Did you do conversion? Are you in the program? You know, who'd you do it with? You know." And she feels uncomfortable. They're asking her personal questions, and she's proud of her being Jewish, but she doesn't think it. So I said, "Basia, let me tell you a secret. What we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. Anytime someone asks you a question, you tell them, 'I'm willing to answer all your questions. It costs $5 a question.'" And she said, "I can do it." I said, "Yeah. If they question you, tell them I said." And a few days later, she comes to my office. She says, "Rabbi Czapnik, I did it, and it worked like a charm. Most people asked me, and I said $5, and they said, 'I'm sorry, I shouldn't be asking.' Except one person said, 'I know you shouldn't be asking, but I can't hold myself back. Here's $10. I have 2 questions to ask you.'" And she played with him, said, "Well, if you asked it differently, you could get, you know, more information." And whatever, she came to give me the $10 as a donation. I said, "If this is the last $10 in the world, I'm not taking it as a donation. It's yours. You earned it. keep it, enjoy it. So people sometimes are a little bit insensitive. They don't know what to ask and and many times they don't mean badly. It's just, but people are curious, so they want to ask questions. So that's just a great story. The mitzvah of not harming a widow or an orphan, not causing pain to somebody, very, very important. Rabbi Sol Salanter, the great father of the Muslim movement, he told the people in the matzah bakery that you have to be very careful not to scream at the widows that are rolling the dough, and make sure you're nice to them. It's because otherwise, you're gonna you may violate the prohibition against causing pain to a widow, and you think your matzahs are so kosher, and you're really not, because they were at someone's expense. Rabbi Yaakov Berlin, the father of the Nitziv, once brought home very expensive handmade glasses. The member of the household enjoyed them for only a few days, and the maid dropped it and broke it. The wife was very upset and scolded the maid for her clumsiness. Rabbi Berlin intervened and said, "You have no right to shout at the maid and humiliate her. You feel that she should pay for it, take it to the rabbi for a Jewish learning, Jewish decision." And she says, "You know what? I'm going to do that." So she took the maid, and Rabbi Yaakov stood up and proceeded to accompany them. And his wife said, "You don't have to come with me. I know what I'm going to say. I'm not going on your behalf. I'm going on behalf of the maid. I want to help her. She's an orphan and does not have anyone to come to her defense. So I'm going to go to her defense." Very, very beautiful story that way. The mitzvah of lending without a loan, without charging interest, a very unbelievable mitzvah, which really we're not going to talk more about now, because there's a whole concept called gemach, which stands for Gemilas Chasadim, which means a free loan society. For example, in Los Angeles, we don't have that many, but we have a few. One of them is a wedding dress gemach. Somebody wants to get married, they don't have to buy one. They could look at this free loan and possibly find a dress that works for them. In Yerushalayim, when you go to Jerusalem, go check out the Jerusalem phone book, and there's a whole section of gemachs. Amazing stuff that people have done to help people. Another mitzvah is not listening to or believing lashon hara, people who speak ill about others. A mitzvah of hashavas aveda, returning what is lost, going far away from saying a lie. Be honest. Don't mix milk or meat together and don't derive benefit from it. And don't cook it together, don't eat it together, and don't derive benefit from it. There's so much more to say. We're running out of time, but I will tell you a great story about two stories. One about returning lost objects. Someone was carrying some chickens and took a nap near a tree near the home of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and he woke up late and he left without the chickens. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa's wife found the chickens, took care of them, hoping that the owner would eventually return. Chickens multiplied, became too much of a burden to keep them, so she sold the chickens and bought goats with the proceeds, because the goats graze on their own and was easier to take care of. A while later, a man who had lost his chickens passed Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa's house and said, "Here's where I left my chickens." Chanina ben Dosa heard the remark and asked him if he had any signs. You have to be able to identify something, maybe the color of the thing they were wrapped in or the knot that was on them. And he had the sign and he was able to do that. And what ended up happening was, he says, "Come, let me give you your chickens." And he opens up the backyard and says, and here the goats come marching out. He says, I had chickens, not goats. He said, yes, but we sold them to be able to take care of them, and here are your goats. Now, just as an aside, technically, any expense that the person who's holding the item for can ask for reimbursement on them. He's not required to spend his own money on the feed, let's say. But be that as it may, the man got a bunch of goats instead of his chickens, but his stuff was returned. All right, we'll conclude with one more beautiful story related to the Ten Commandments. In 1976 was the American bicentennial. And in Israel, the Americans sponsored fireworks, which was an unusual thing in Israel to have at that time. And there's a little boy, a little religious boy, watching it for the first time. And he's so enamored with this vision. And he doesn't know, he's trying to find a reference to say, what would this be compared to? And he calls out and he says, Nasa v'nishma, we will do and we will accept the Torah. He figured this is the most unbelievable thing he's seen. It must be compared to the receiving of the Torah. And that's how he related to seeing the fireworks for the first time. So again, there's a lot more to talk about on the Parsha, but there's a lot of mitzvahs, but we did do a pretty good overview, and now open to any questions, thoughts and comments. Questions, thoughts and comments, going once.
Is it okay if we read the translation of Torah?
Of course, that's what it's there for. What do you think we have it there for?
How we say that it's not good that they translated Torah, right? So.
Oh, one of the things, we'd rather go straight to the source, and that's one of the reasons why we have a course in reading Hebrew, and we're going to have prayer book Hebrew, so that you're going to be able to learn it from the source.
If, for example, we read like the transition is.
That's fine. That's the idea, is so you understand what's going on. That's why we have, and the art school is a very reliable company. That's why we use the art school Siddur and art school Chumash. Yes, you can use the translation. Please go right ahead. That's what it's there for. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments? Initially, we didn't want the Torah to be translated, but now that it is, fine. Yes.
So
And let me just throw, and also clarifies things in a way that we didn't have. Yeah, go ahead.
So when Israel says don't hurt the Jewish people, is it actually
Who says?
when Israel?
Yes,
Told Pharaoh don't hurt
Right.
the Jewish people? Is it in the Talmud?
it's not in the text, it's in the Medrash, it's in the oral tradition,
Oral tradition.
in the Medrash.
And then, as far as what's in the Torah, does the Torah say that the Jewish people should be living in Israel? Or is there such a thing in the Torah that's specifically?
There is a mitzvah of living in the land of Israel, but not, it has to work with the circumstance of a person's life. So that takes, rabbinic authority to be able to ask, should I move, should I not move, what's your financial situation?
So I mean, if like a child wants to move to Israel and the parents don't want him to move, is it go under the law of like honoring your parents, listening to your parents, or following the Torah, what's in the Torah?
Excellent question. For those that didn't hear on Zoom, the question was if a child wants to move to Israel and the parent doesn't want them to move, which does that fall into the category of the child doesn't have to listen to the parent because there's a mitzvah to live in the land, or should the child be required to listen to the parent? Great question. I think it really depends on the circumstances. Is there a plan? Does it make sense? And that's why I think a rabbi should be consulted. But all things being equal, let's assume the person has a good job and et cetera, and things make sense. Just the mother doesn't want the kid to go, then probably the child can go, doesn't have to. I mean, for example, I'll give you a different example. If a child wants to learn at yeshiva A and the mother and mother want him to learn in yeshiva B, he can go to the yeshiva that he wants. He doesn't have to listen to them. So it depends, but I definitely would it definitely is worthy of a discussion with the rabbi, because you have to go through all the parameters of what's going on.
Yeah, sometimes the child has their own rabbi and the parents have their own rabbi, and so the child's rabbi is pointing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the parent has a right to talk to them and say, these are the reasons A, B, C, and D why we think it's not a good idea. So that's why it has to be discussed. Because like I said, sometimes idealism is great, there's a joke that they say, which is not nice, but I'll say it just as the joke part. How do you get $1 million in Israel? Come with 2 million. So you have to there has to be a plan about financially what to do,
What about Amuna? People say, I believe in God, God will provide.
So it depends if the faith means that the parents are going to provide. That's it was very funny. There was a when one of the intifadas was going on. So I know a lady who called her son, said, maybe you want to come to America till things cool down there. She said, no, Mom, we're staying, everything's fine. So then when 9/11 happened in the United States, the son called the mother and says, Mom, maybe I want to come to Israel a little bit till things cool down in America. So, it's we live in interesting times, but in any event, so it needs a further discussion. You have a question, Angela?
Yes, the last question. So, for the very nice pages that you print for us, there is a box always asking a question.
Right.
Is there anywhere that we can find the answer to it?
I don't know, because I know that's good, so I give it out, but I don't always, but you can always ask.
So what was the answer to the previous, box? Because we have thought about it in home, we never came up with it.
What was the question?
So the question is that, I read it, so you will understand. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and God moved the sea with a strong east wind all the night, and he turned the sea to damp land, and the waters split, and the peoples, I don't know what to say, revered God. And
Revered, probably. They were like,
revered
wow,
God, and they
unbelievable
believed
miracle.
in God and in Moses, his servant. So after the 10 plagues and numerous other obvious miracles, it is highly unlikely that the Israelites did not believe in God. Yet the verse states that only after God split the sea did the people believe. What kind of belief could the Jew have suddenly acquired? All of the plagues in Egypt happened through open, instantaneous miracles. Whatever turned into blood, dust into lice, soot into boils, etc. When splitting the sea, however, God did so with a strong east wind that blew through the night. Compared to the previous miracle, the splitting of the sea was more phenomenal and dramatic. Why might God have added the natural component of causing the wind to blow through the night instead of performing a more overt miracle?
Well, it's a good question. Now, on this next week, Yisro, does it say the answer to the previous weeks?
This is the first one that I got. Again, there's a question.
Look, yeah, but it doesn't include an answer on the back of the
I didn't.
you didn't see it. Let me see. Yisro.
There's one that
Maybe they want you to look into the.
Yeah. I can give you a partial answer. The miracles at the sea, we say in the Haggadah, were even greater than Sinai by multiples, because it was split 12 ways for each of the tribes, where they could see each other and they could take water or fruit from it. It dried up, it was flat, it was smooth, and not only that, at the same time that they were going there, the Egyptians were being drowned, and it was muddy. So there's a lot more that God did as a final statement of God's presence in the world. The wind itself, I don't think that was significant, because there was in Egypt, there were also winds blowing the grasshoppers, whatever. But I can't give you a more complete answer than that. I have to look into it. So you have the questions, ask, and I'll try to do homework.
Sorry about it.
Don't be sorry. It's
Question.
good. That's what it's called. That's how you learn, by asking.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question if you want to take it.
Yeah, go ahead. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Of Torah reading and from Yeshayahu,
Yes.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
What is about Isaiah? It's a Jewish person.
Yeah, Yeshayahu is a prophet. Yeah. Yeshayahu, Isaiah is the same person.
The same person.
Same person. In Hebrew it's called Yeshayahu, in English it's called Isaiah. He was a prophet. Yeah, what do you have?
Well, actually, I got two questions, but the first one I have is you said that from the Ten Commandments, somebody could show all our commandments come from there.
Come from there, correct.
Is there a way to look into that, or how do I find
Yeah,
that? How
I
it's
don't
done?
remember. Rav Hai going did it, but I don't know where to find it per se. I don't think it was translated, but you could try looking. I don't know. I'd have to look. I'm not sure. Second question.
Okay, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, like I said, conceptually we can understand it. As I gave examples of mitzvahs related to between man and God, and man and men.
Right.
Positive commandments, negative commandments. So that we can
Right.
see clearly.
Okay.
The
So
details of how he did that I can't answer you. Yes.
So another question I had is, you were talking about slavery, right?
Yes.
So overall, it seems like the book of Exodus is to free yourself from slavery. So it seems like the ideal for us is to be free so we can worship God.
That's
and that
correct.
slavery is a bad position to be
That
in,
is
right?
correct. I agree with you totally about that. But sometimes, like I said, a person maybe owes for stealing, or a person is in a bad financial state, then he needs to do that. But actually, we're not happy about the person who wants to stay longer than the 6 years. And that's why he gets a little hole in his ear.
Okay. So, but it's considered not a good thing to have a slave or be a slave or
Not serving
and it was and was it very different than because people look at now slavery mostly, they think like the Civil War we fought and all the slaves.
Yeah, but you know what? There's another thing also.
Yeah.
There's a different aspect of slavery now, even for people that aren't officially slaves. Now people complain all the time. I hear this. They get emails and phone calls from their bosses 24/7. And that's a form of slavery in a certain sense. Yeah, they're getting paid. The slave is also getting paid, but it's not, jobs are not 9 to 5 anymore, and that's something that also needs thought. Okay, wise guy. Jobs aren't always 7 to 4 now. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Rabbi Czapnik.
You're very welcome, Bracha. Diane, how are we doing in Yerushalayim?
Yerushalayim is peaceful today, thank goodness.
Okay, good. Hashem
And we're
Shekhinah.
doing well. It's cold.
I'm sorry.
It's cold here.
It's cold. You don't have heat in the apartment?
I do.
Okay. All right.
Cold
Good.
outside still.
Stay warm.
Okay. But we're
Feel
doing
good.
well.
How's your son doing? Okay.
He's doing okay. He moved to LA.
Really? Oh. Where does he live? Do you know?
Lives there at Pico Robertson on Canfield.
Ooh, we wanted our side of town.
Well, I'm coming in town in 2 weeks, so I might see you live.
I hope so. That would be great. All right. Very nice. Good to
We'll all
see you.
come.
Take care, Elisheva.
Thank you.
Take it. Take care, Bracha.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks,
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Tomorrow night class with Rabbi Yaakov Marcus, 7 o'clock here.